Hello, BookTube. Well, it's another bookshelf tour. We're on the third shelf of the small east wall bookcase. uh, and once again, we will start with the transverse books to get them out of the way and make it easier to find the others. And in this case, there's only two. There's this, The Lion in Winter by James Goldman. This is just a slim reprint of the play. It's a stage play with the most ridiculous cover that I've seen in any modern reprint. That cover has literally nothing to do with the play. Nothing even remotely close to it happens in the course of the play. It's just a cover artist saying, well, it's two sexy young people. Let's put them on the cover. What can it hurt? But the play itself, well worth your time. And then another one of these things that we've seen a few times, even in just this one bookcase alone. Old Curios of Vanished Boston. This is Washington Street, old and new. But the new part isn't new. The new part is a century old. So Washington Street goes back a long way. And some of you who might know me in real life will know that I've spent a lot of my life working on Washington Street. I can find most of my old bookstores in this pamphlet. But I don't even remember where I found this. Probably at the Brattle. But it's a lovely little thing. And I put those transfers. Let's get those out of the way. While we get into the bookshelf itself. So the first one is a chunker, but a really good book. This is an introduction to the New Testament by Father Raymond Brown. This is just soup to nuts basics, but in a very steeply intelligent way about what the New Testament is, where the documents are, what their nature is, analysis of them as literary productions, but also as historical productions, and lots of history of previous studies. It's a one volume. It's an amazingly good one volume book to have. The publisher recently did, I think 2 years ago, they did an abridged version of this, so that wouldn't be quite so intimidating. It was one of the only abridgments I've ever seen where of a large scholarly work where I would think that anyone, even the most beginning layman, would read it and think, well, I want more, not less of this, because he's a wonderful prose stylist. Then we have yet another work on Christianity. This is Crisis in the Life of God by Jack Miles, who did a great book elsewhere in this room called God, an Autobiography, in which he has the inspired idea of reading the Old Testament as simply a straightforward, chronologically progressing life story of a character named God, and what the various changes in his behavior would be token for what's going on in his inner life. It's just an amazing book. And when I first heard that this was coming out, that he was going to extend that treatment to Jesus, I worried, of course, because no matter what writers or publishers might think, it's not always easy to get lightning to strike twice, but I shouldn't have worried. This is an amazing book. Eye-opening. No matter how much you've read about Jesus Christ or the Gospels, it's eye-opening. Then we have this. I think we've seen this on this channel before. This is a beautiful reprint of An Essay on Man by Alexander Pope that I love. I think it's got the pub sheet in it. I think I raved about this. This came out in July of last year, so I probably held it up on this channel. It was fantastic. It's everything that a poem like this should have. It's the poem, a huge introduction, and tons of notes. Let me show you the notes block at the bottom of the page, of every page. Doesn't take away the joy of reading the poem at all, but Pope was a very elusive, very classically referential author. Hardly ever wrote a line that doesn't need a gloss in the 21st century when people grow up in grammar school not being taught English at all and grow up in high school reading Harry Potter as their only elective. They don't ever read mythology. They don't ever read Milton. They don't ever read Chaucer. So what are you going to do when you come to an author like Pope? You're simply not going to be able to read him. It's as simple as that. It's as closed a door as solitary confinement because you haven't been prepared to read him the way all of his readers were prepared in his own day. It gives me the willies when I think about it. But this was a great, I wish that every long, great poem had a scholarly edition like this with the notes and brought out by a major publisher to be part of a current new book listing. I think that's wonderful. Then we have yet another old Boston book. I should put them all on one shelf, shouldn't I? Actually, doing this is making me think I should put them all on one shelf. This is the Athenaeum Gallery This is it's 1827 to 1873, so it stops a long, long time ago, and it is an annotated catalog of the extensive artwork in the Boston Athenaeum, which is a private library here in Boston, up on Beacon Hill, that has a great book collection. Don't get me wrong, it works really well as a library. We will encounter in these bookshelves books of people who spent their whole days using the Athenaeum as a library. But it's also an art museum. I mean, there's no other way to put it. It's crammed with artwork, and a lot of it is gorgeous. It was chosen and pilfered by all the right people. This is one of my favorite comprehensive guides to that art collection. There have been lots of others. And then a classic, The Roman Revolution by Ronald Sim. This is when did this first come out? This is an absolutely unavoidable work of Roman history. If you're going to read a serious work of Roman history, you're going to read about this book. This came out in 1939, and it's Ronald Sim's study of the transition from Republican system of government under a group of more or less qualified oligarchs to upheaval to the Roman Republic being taken over by a series of dictators who had ultimate power under the rubric of popular support. So that if you asked a Roman in the early days of Julius Caesar's principate whether or not their entire world had changed, they would have said no. They would have said, this is just an aberration. The system is strong enough to withstand anything like this. We will go back to normal. And they were completely wrong. Their entire political world had changed for the worse in their lifetime, under their noses. And most of them didn't notice. Some of the most acute observers of their own present day, we have their letters, we have their treaties, and they didn't notice. They thought that what they were looking at was an aberration. And Sim is not to get too topical on you, but Sim is a great historian of that transition. It's a fantastic book. His style takes a little getting used to. He's not for beginners, but he's a beautiful prose stylist, but it's tough to describe his style. I'll have to do a whole video on Roman history, and then I'll talk about him for 15 minutes, 15 unendurable minutes. Then we have this, the Oxford Book of Essays, edited by the great John Gross. Just what it says. It's just a big collection of classic essays going back hundreds of years. The key in any anthology like this is going to be the smarts of the editor, and John Gross was great, so this is an anthology to have. And then a big, beautiful hardcover of The Magic Mountain by Thomas Mann. Gott im Himmel. This gigantic thing. I had it, of course. I had the little mass market paperback with the blank cover and the primary colors, but I saw this at the Brattle, and it's lovely, so I got it. Because The Magic Mountain is a book you reread, so it pays to have a sturdy hardcover. Then we have this thing. This is Letters of the Century. I don't know, some of you might remember this, especially if you worked in bookstores for a while or have visited bookstores for. This was a surprise bestseller when it came out back in the 90s, I think. When did this come out? 1999. And it's just what it says. It's a collection of American letters from the earliest ones all the way to the dawn of technology. And now with the 21st century, won't be able to have a book like this unless it's collected tweets and emails, and not enough people save those. So, I mean, we've had famous authors write essays for the New Yorker about how they can no longer access their email from 10 years ago. So those documents are effectively gone. Whole decades of them for people we'd want them for, and the ones that aren't, we're at the mercy of these giant tech conglomerates that can release them or not release them. They're certainly not on your machine anymore. Your machine is in a landfill somewhere. So, does Twitter want to release the collected tweets of? It's a whole nother subject. This book is fantastic, mainly on the same thing as the John Gross book, on the strength of the editors. The editors found great letters and didn't miss a good one. So then we have this thing. This is there's horse hooves. This is a selection of the Canterbury Tales, translated by Sheila Fisher. And it still has a pub sheet in it. Yes, it does. For immediate release. Yeah, not anymore. This is from 2011 from Norton. It came as a surprise to me in the mail, and and I read it and was blown away. I was tremendously impressed by it. So I kept it, even though I have, to put it mildly, no shortage of Chaucer. And then the last one, this is the last one for today, is another book on the cultural significance and the wonder of libraries. This is Wayne Wiggins' A Part of Our Lives. It's a people's history of the American Public Library. I hate that rubric, of course. It stems from the odious Howard Zinn. It's not a people's history. I don't even know what that means. What's a people's history of the public library in America? It's a history of the public library in America. So it's not an elite history? So that formulation, a people's history, it's designed for undergraduates, for credulous undergraduates who know just enough to think that maybe they're being kept from a secret trove of knowledge. Drives me nuts. And it drives also, I might add, a wedge between real historians and rabble-rousing, crowd-pleasing, auditorium-cheering historians who end up being fake, phony as $3 bills. This came out in 2015. We can leave the rant about people's histories until we get to my copy of A People's History of the United States by Howard Zinn. Oh, wait, I don't have one. So, anyway, there you go. That is the third bookshelf of the small East Wall bookcase. Now, I'll wrap up now since you've surely had enough. But I'll be back. We'll do another one. Thank you, BookTube.